website. They've got
On here.
Yeah, I've spoken with them.
Energy innovation and carbon dividend act. That's what they're asking people to lobby for.
Yep. All right. Everybody set? Okay. I hereby call the 2,310th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, our meetings are going to be in slightly different order than people who watch them usually are used to. We're starting with our announcements instead of finishing with them because we figure less people are watching at 11 o'clock at night. Celebrate Black History Month tomorrow from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Leading Library as we welcome 4 guest speakers, including Kim Moreland, board member of the Oregon Black Pioneers, Libra Ford, award-winning speaker and social justice leader, and Dorothy and Curtis Hadley, owners of the first African-American-owned business in Milwaukee. Join us for a free conversation. Join a free conversation at the Leading Library on Thursday, March 5th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. called Can We Get Along? Examining our personal experiences of connection and community. Jaso Hata, a artist, educator, dance director, arts integration specialist, community activist, and performing artist, will lead the conversation. Volunteer at the Johnson Creek Watershed Council's largest restoration event of the year on Saturday, March 7th from 8:45 a.m. to 12 p.m. There are 10 restoration work parties to choose from throughout the watershed. You can learn more and sign up online. Learn more about the 22nd Avenue and River Road Safe Access for Everyone project at an open house on Wednesday, March 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Milwaukee Grange. If you aren't able to attend but would like to review the design plan and submit comments and questions, please visit the project webpage. Volunteer at a very special wetland in Milwaukee known as Minthorn Spring. On Saturday, March 14th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Volunteers will remove invasive plants, pick up trash, and just generally work to make the area better for native plants and wildlife. Discover the magic of ballet at an intimate performance of the Oregon Ballet Theater at the Milwaukee Center on Saturday, March 14th at 5 p.m. Doors open at 4:30 p.m. The entrance fee is only $5 and all ages are welcome. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov.
Can I add 2?
Sure.
So this Saturday morning from 9 to noon is Garden Discovery Day at the Milwaukee Center. This is a program that the Clackamas County Master Gardeners put on, and they have what they call 10-minute university, which means a series of short talks on everything from growing blueberries to attracting and hosting mason bees to growing tomatoes. So all kinds of free garden advice. I think they also do soil testing, so you can take in some of your soil and get your pH tested for free. So that's a great little event. I shouldn't say little. Last time I went, the room was packed and you had to stand against the back wall. Yeah. And the other thing is also this Saturday, I think at 3 in the afternoon, there's an event at the Rose Villa by a group called the Rivers East Village, which is, I think we've talked about it maybe in the past, but the village concept is a thing for helping seniors age in place and bringing together volunteers to provide services. There's a Joanne Harrigal who used to work for this city. She is the sort of spearheading one of the first sort of established village program in Northeast Portland, and this is a kickoff of an effort to get one going here in Milwaukee, Oak Grove, Jennings Lodge area, Gladstone area. And so I'm pretty sure that's at 3 o'clock at Rose Villa for anybody who's interested in that.
Second.
And I think it's this Saturday at 1. Senator Merkley is speaking out at Camp Withicum. So if you have an interest of going to one of his town halls, that's also this Saturday at 1.
That sounds right.
All right. Anything else? Anybody going once? All right. Next item. The League of Women Voters 100th Anniversary, a proclamation. And this is going to be presented by the League of Women Voters of Clackamas County. I don't know who specific. It's apparently Marge Easley.
So we should throw it. And you have to watch the over there.
Okay. My mic is on?
You need to pull it closer, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Marge Easley, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Clackamas County. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I'm here along with several other very special members from this area, Lee Wells and June Routson. Cities and counties around the country are helping us celebrate the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage and the League of Women Voters, and tonight is Milwaukee's turn. This coming Friday, it will be 100 years ago that something special happened here in Oregon. Two local women, Mrs. Effie Simmons and Dr. Esther Pold Lovejoy, inspired by their recent attendance at the National American Women's Suffrage Association convention in Chicago, and by their leader, Carrie Chapman Catt, they organized the creation of the Oregon branch of the National League of Women Voters, which went on to become the organization that we know today. Later that year, on August 26, 1920, was the day after the ratification of the 19th Amendment was officially certified. Carrie Chapman Catt penned a message to her supporters and a charge to the women voters of the nation. And this is just part of the quotation. "The vote is the emblem of your equality, women of America, the guarantee of your liberty. That vote of yours has cost millions of dollars and the lives of thousands of women. Women have suffered agony of soul which you never can comprehend, that you and your daughters might inherit political freedom. That vote has been costly. Prize it." And now there's a video I want to show that kind of documents the League in Oregon. And I guess I started this way. How do I do this?
The little triangle.
I lost the cursor.
Yeah, it kind of gets confusing.
There it is. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
It's 1920. After 72 years of struggle to gain the right to vote, American women are about to achieve their goal, and the National League of Women Voters is founded. An Oregonian, Effie Simmons, is on the first National League Board of Directors. In the fall, the Oregon League begins forming local league groups around the state. So from its start, the league operates on 3 levels: national, state, and local. Early members studied issues. Today, we still conduct in-depth studies informing ourselves and the public. From our start, we advocated for better government policies. We still work to improve government. We are nonpartisan grassroots activists. Our history is filled with examples of our positive impact. From the 1920s on, we have been helping voters. We have worked to expand rights for women and children. During World War II, we planted Victory Gardens. Then, we actively supported the creation of the United Nations and served as official consultants. In the 50s, we defended American rights. Later, we supported regional planning. men as members. For decades, we've had a major role in fighting for a healthy environment. As leaders for voters' rights, we've achieved many successes. We are a key trusted source of reliable, nonpartisan voter information, reaching out in new ways to more voters. Today, more than ever, the League is resolute in defending the rights of all people to a livable future.
So my favorite part of the League is what I get from the studies, being around inspired people, and the thinking.
The power that the League of Women Voters has to move from identifying the root causes of an issue to then being able to research and identify opportunities for education and then moving that forward to real change through advocacy in our local communities.
Our democracy is really important, and if we value that, we need to have people that are engaged.
The League's involved in so many things. It's really exciting.
Affordable housing and homelessness,
Clean energy, funding for education.
LNG, liquefied gas plants,
women's reproductive health rights,
the Hard Rock mining study.
and we're working on cybersecurity and privacy.
anything that you care about, whether it's social issues, economic issues, the environment can be or should be impacted by public policy.
You find your niche, and you take on more responsibilities, and you just watch people grow as they do that.
With the misinformation that has been just really a proponent of like social media and stuff, this is a really good area to find information that you can believe in. You can find information just about anything that you want to find out about in a non-biased, nonpartisan way.
And I think that makes the League an honest broker in a lot of settings.
One of the great things I think the League does is sort of decouple the political conversation from the issues of civic engagement.
What is the world going to look like in 50, 100 years? And how can what we do now as both individuals and a community, what can we do to affect that? You can go a lot farther and do a lot more if you're with other people who are excited and energized about the same thing.
As a new citizen in this country, it's very important how we can participate and make our voice heard. So that's why my interest in joining the League.
It felt like you could go someplace and have a say, and somebody would actually listen to what you have to say. I'm getting so much more knowledge. I feel more confident.
We need to integrate people from other communities.
However you're going to come here, we're welcome. You're welcome, and we want your presence. Do the work that you're most excited about.
The League is really one of our strongest hopes. That's why I'm a member. That's why I give so much of my time. And I think it's well spent.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have actually a couple of questions, if you
Sure.
don't mind. I'm curious if at the national level, Oregon is attempting to sway the entire country to use our vote, both our automatic voter registration system that we have, the motor voter law, and then the other piece would be our mail-in ballot system, which would alleviate all the games that are being played out there about making it harder and harder for people in certain segments to vote and things like that. Is that?
This is something that we have been promoting at every National League convention since I can remember. We can't understand why other other states don't use the Oregon way. The League were the chief petitioners on the Vote by Mail initiative when it passed, and so we are huge proponents, and we tout its benefits everywhere we go.
Nice. Are you also looking at anything like ranked choice voting or star voting or any of those in some of the
Yes,
primary
we are.
processes?
As a matter of fact, I'm involved in a voter summit that's going to happen in Lake Oswego on April 4th because they're looking at a possible change to ranked choice voting. And so other communities in, I think it's Benton County, has looked at that. And we are really promoting that. We've done 2 election method studies, one fairly recently, and we do support alternative methods of voting, including ranked choice.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Excellent. Anybody else? No. All right, I have a proclamation to read. Whereas the League of Women Voters of Clackamas County has, since its founding in Milwaukee and Lake Oswego in 1955, made significant contributions to good local government through its nonpartisan community services activities and voter information programs. And whereas the year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the League in our nation and in the state of Oregon, and whereas the City Council of the City of Milwaukee appreciates and commends the League membership for outstanding public service in our community and urges broad public support of the League of Women Voters and its program objectives. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukee, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim March 2020 to be League of Women Voters Month in Milwaukee in recognition of the League's 100 years of service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up, we have Women's History Month, the Proclamation, and this will be presented by the Milwaukee Historical Society.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, and city staff for letting Milwaukee Historical Society, owners and operators of the Milwaukee Museum, open Saturdays, 1 to 5 p.m., located at 3737 Southeast Adams Street, present for Women's History Month proclamation this evening. March is Women's History Month. It is a month to reflect on the contributions women do for our community, past and present. We should not only learn about Florence Olson Letting, Nell Martin, Annie Ross Roberts, Mayor Burgess, and Maggie Johnson, but recognize Representative Power, Councilor Beatty, Councilor Faulkner, Heisey, and Parks, and City Manager Ann Ober, Andrea Adams, Lisa Gunyon-Riker, and Lisa Lashbrooks, and others for the work they do today. Tonight we are going to highlight 4 amazing women who have contributed to Milwaukee's past and have set the trends for what we see today. Jean says, I'm not the most popular woman around, and it's taken years to figure out why. I guess it's because I'm more forward than the average person, and I speak my mind. I try to be diplomatic, but sometimes I fail at that. But it's hard to see that once you get to know her. Jean Baker lived her early years in Mississippi and Oakland, California. She met her husband, a nuclear weapons specialist, and had 2 children. They migrated up to Gladstone and to Milwaukee in 1965. She loved Milwaukee because it had everything that young people today would kill for. You could be born and die within 10 blocks and have everything that you would ever need. Jean has done a lot in her life. She worked at the Kellogg's Cornflakes factory where she was a cornflakes inspector. She even fell into the cornflakes machine at one time. She has volunteered at the county hospitals, the VA, election board, PTA, 4-H, started a homeowners association, held coffees to support Ron Wyden, ran for county commissioner, chair of the historic Milwaukee NDA, and much more. One of Jean's greatest accomplishments not only affected Milwaukee, but the state of Oregon and the world. She created rule number 1 of the Planning Bible. Your comprehensive plan comes first and zoning comes second. Anything else you do has to agree with that comprehensive plan. It became state and international law.
Enid says, one of the significant events, I believe, was when I was working at PNC Tool Company, and we would go to work and put together the tools that the Navy needed, and we would go home at the regular time of 5 o'clock. And we would get a call saying the Navy needed more tools. Come down and work tonight. So we'd work again another 4 or 5 hours. She has always been willing to go the extra mile. Enid Briggs was born in Milwaukee on Briggs Street in 1925. Her grandparents were first-generation Milwaukeeans coming from Maine. She is related to the Birkenmeyers, known for the construction and designing houses all around the region. Enid remembers a man in the name of Flapjack King who used to toss 50-cent pieces into the swimming pool at Crystal Lake Park, and the kids would dive for them. That sounds like fun. Enid is living a full life. She remembers growing up in Milwaukee, involved with 4-H, playing with the goats and chickens, the junior parades around the 4th of July, graduating from Milwaukee High School, and during World War II, doing her part for the country by making wrenches and other tools at PNC Tool Company. Enid left Milwaukee to teach high school in Astoria, but returned in 1972. Her family was one of the founders of the Milwaukee Historical Society, which is open Saturdays from 1 to 5. And she still sits on the board today. Enid's greatest contribution to our community is her knowledge of the past and her willingness to share it. She has taught all of us the history and the stories that make Milwaukee what it is today. Her 95 years of devotion to expounding our history still carries on today, as she still leads history tours to her fellow residents at Deerfield. In fact, she told me this evening that she has one scheduled for tomorrow. All right. June Ralston. June says some of us got concerned when we heard that the school district was going to sell the junior high grounds and tear down the building. And so we developed some community meetings, and finally, after some of these meetings, we talked the school district into not selling the building. But there was a public swimming pool on the Milwaukee junior high grounds. It wasn't used as much in the summertime because the water was so cold. So after we got this project of saving the building, we got a group going to buy gas water heaters to heat the pool in the summertime. So that after that, it was used much more. This is a pattern with June getting things done. June Ralston spent her childhood in Oregon City and came to Milwaukee in 1949. She graduated journalism school and held positions at Oregon City Courier, Milwaukee Review, and the school district. When she was married, they moved into their first house in Ardenwald. The house was originally from Kellogg Park, our wartime housing complex. Her husband built a house off of Lake Road where they stayed until 1975, returning to Milwaukee in 2003. June began her volunteerism by becoming president of Milwaukee Grammar PTA. She joined League of Women's Voters, helping with voter registration and candidate fairs. She's a 50-year member. She was an original member of Milwaukee Parks and Beautification Committee, served on Clackamas Parks Board for 35 years. For her service, she has a building named after her at Barton Park. She's a founding member and former president of what is now called Clackamas College Community Foundation, raising money for scholarships. She still volunteers for League of Women Voters and Seasoned Adults Enrichment at Clackamas College. Besides her dedication to League of Women Voters, June's greatest contribution to Milwaukee is creating our first park. Her hard work, commitment, countless hours, and dedication with Milwaukee Parks and Beautification Committee led to the opening of Century Park on 35th and Edison. It was our first park and began our commitment for everyone to enjoy, play, and being outdoors.
Carolyn Tomei.
Carolyn says, a couple of women who lived across the street and I learned that the sewage treatment plant was going to expand into our neighborhood, and it was going to take several of these houses. Nobody knew that, but one of our neighbors found out. So the three of us formed our neighborhood association, and we got people involved, and we started fighting it, and we stopped it, so we thought that was really good. Doing good and helping others is a mantra for Carolyn. Carolyn Tomei was born in West Virginia, moved to California, then Medford, before planting her roots in Milwaukee over 50 years ago. In Medford, she became a foster parent and became interested in helping children. After moving to Milwaukee, she earned her master's degree in social work and began working with parents and children in foster care. She then worked at Portland Public Schools as a child development specialist, working with families and children. She has also acted in two movies, dozens of commercials, and in local theater. Carolyn started her volunteerism in Milwaukee by starting her neighborhoods association. She created Friends of Elk Rock Island, which then led a master plan for Spring Park. Then she got involved in local government, becoming a planning commissioner for the city of Milwaukee, then Milwaukee City Council member, then mayor of Milwaukee. Not to mention, she was also Oregon House 41 representative for 14 years. She still volunteers and is active in the Humanists of Greater Portland and her Island Station NDA. Carolyn has 3 great accomplishments that are now mainstays in Milwaukee. 1, she fought hard for light rail when she was on the city council and when she was mayor. 2, the beauty and protection of Elk Rock and Spring Park. 3, neighborhood district associations. These projects have led to what we see as Milwaukee today and what our future is anchored to. So Milwaukee Historical Society believes all our history is important to tell. All these facts and quotes came from our Women's History Project, which started in 2017. We recorded stories and accounts of over 25 women who created Milwaukee as it is today. We would like to remind everyone of the upcoming celebration of Black History tomorrow night at the Ledding Library, beginning at 6 p.m. 4 out of the 5 speakers tomorrow are women. Council President Angel Falconer, Libra Ford, Kim Moreland, and Dorothy Hadley. These are all leaders dedicated to social justice, inclusion, and expanding our knowledge of history. Even though we separate historical months into certain segments, they are all important to our city's history, and we all make history every day. Thank you, and now Mayor Gamba, please read your proclamation.
All right. Whereas Milwaukee women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city in countless ways, and whereas Milwaukee women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the city by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside the home. And whereas Milwaukee women have played a unique role throughout the history of the city by providing most of the volunteer labor force of the city, and whereas Milwaukee women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our city, and whereas Milwaukee women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas Milwaukee women have courageously served our country in the national and state armed forces, and whereas Milwaukee women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movements, and especially the peace movement. And whereas, despite these contributions, the role of women in Milwaukee, Oregon, and our national histories has been overlooked and undervalued. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, the mayor of the city of Milwaukee, a municipal corporation in the county of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, and with the full support and sponsorship of the Milwaukee Historical Society, do hereby proclaim March 2020 to be Women's History Month in Milwaukee, and do recommend its observance with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
Mr. Mayor, if we could get a photo with you, the councilor, and the city manager with our special guests that were featured here.
Sure.
This evening, that would be wonderful.
Great, do you think that might be a good back?
Yeah, that should work.
Where are we going?
In front of the screen that says Women's History Month. Huh?
Is that our token on there? That's all we know. Right? Actually, it's like the king in his hair.
No, it's not.
Honors.
How are you?
No, I'm not. I'm going to judge you.
Pretty good at this. Pretty good at this radio thing, aren't you?
What's it? Yeah. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. Good. Speaking
Can someone tell us whether the interviews are going to be available online or somewhere where people can?
We're getting closer. The person that was in charge of that project was not doing very well, and so we're trying to get out the pieces. Hopefully next March at the library we'll have a big celebration to open it.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
It was.
Thank you for that program. That was very sweet.
That was really special.
Outstanding program, everybody. Thank you. That was really good. And nice combo, too.
And Jean Baker, it is really good to see you.
And we do really like you.
All right.
Honored to be here.
So we're going to do the consent agenda, and then I think we'll move the resolution up to the next item so that people don't have to wait around to the very end. All right. On tonight's consent agenda, we have minutes of the February 4th, 2020 work and regular sessions. We have a resolution making the following reappointments. Laura Steenson to the Arts Committee, Jacob Stetson and Joel Bergman to the Citizens Utility Advisory Board, Evan Smiley, Mary Newstetter, and Cynthia Schuster to the Design and Landmarks Committee, Linda Blue and Martha Germany to the Park and Recreation Board, John Burns to the Planning Commission, and John Brown and Gina Dake to the Tree Board. We have a resolution establishing a library fine amnesty week from April 19th through April 25th, 2020 in recognition of National Library Week. We have a resolution granting an exemption from property taxes under the Oregon Revised Statute 307.540 to 307.548 for the 28-unit low-income housing development, Walsh Commons, owned and operated by Northwest Housing Alternatives. We have a resolution acting as the local contract review board approving the award of a contract for the construction of the Meek Street Pipeline installation South Phase, CIP-2016-Y11 to Tapani Inc. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Nope.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Audience participation. We'll do that first. Audience participation. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member statements regarding city business. Those wishing to speak must fill out the yellow speaker registration card available on the table in the hall and identify agenda item number 4, audience participation. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because the information provided during the public comment may be new to some councilors, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Anybody? Nope. Ms. Ober, do we have anything from the last
There were two items that came up at the last meeting. The first was a comment that a youth had been targeted or had been ticketed for skateboarding. I have not received any information about who that would have been, and we have not found any cases where that has happened. But again, if somebody has had that experience and would contact me directly, I'd appreciate it, and we're happy to talk about that. The second is a woman came and spoke about the PD union contract. And so we did meet with her. She has since sent us a subsequent email, and we have responded back that we are planning on addressing that in our union bargaining. So that's as far as that's going right now. But we did appreciate the input, and we're going to proceed.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So, no takers? All right.
You've got a card.
That's what we're about to do.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So this is item E, which is on the very last page of your agenda. And it will be presented by our Assistant City Manager, Kelly Brooks. It's a resolution. Are you doing, yes. Do you have any input on that? Do you have anything for us on this? No? So we'll just, all right. So this would probably be the most efficient just to have Carrie come up and talk to us about it.
Hello.
So give us your name and address, city residence, whatever.
Just city.
They keep changing.
Good evening. My name is Kari Schlosshauer, and I live in Portland, but I do work all over the region. I work for an organization called the Safe Routes Partnership, and it's a pleasure to see many of you again. I've been in this building a lot. A few years ago, when there was quite a lot of work around Safe Routes to School and your SAFE committee, and was really excited to see the work that came out of that and continues to come out of that to make the community in Milwaukee safer for youth and their families. And just wanted to talk very briefly today about sort of an opportunity that's coming up to build on that. I think as many of you know, there is currently a regional transportation measure that is being considered by Oregon Metro, and Mayor Gamba sits on the task force for that. And currently there is a conversation happening around programs that would be a part of that. And Safe Routes to School is actually one of the programs that could be a part of that. So there's an opportunity to build on some of the work that is happening here in Milwaukee, as well as in other cities in the region. But there are other safety programs and other programs that will benefit folks in Clackamas County. And I wanted to speak specifically to one of the programs, which is a regional youth pass that is being considered as part of that program. Youth Pass is a program that currently exists in Portland Public Schools. It serves about 12,000 students in Portland Public High Schools at the moment during the school year. And it's been expanded a little bit to other, mostly Multnomah County school districts in the past few years, and is a wildly popular program that really helps to serve youth to be able to get to and from school, but also to and from jobs, after school programs, medical, on the weekends, to be able to help them to get around. In Portland Public School District, they've got a different arrangement where they don't actually have yellow school buses, and we all know the transit service is as good as it is in the region, it's good there. So it's really helpful for the youth to be able to ride on transit in that district. In other districts, Youth Pass provides additional options to yellow school buses, and just provides an opportunity for youth to be able to get to and from school, in particular around morning time, to be able to get them to school so that they're not missing class. If they miss that yellow school bus, they have another option. So it's an opportunity to provide more transportation options to youth. We have about 200,000 youth in the region, and the opportunity within this measure, the regional transportation measure, is to be able to provide a availability of a youth pass to all of those youth, recognizing that transit service looks different all over the region, but that, at least in Milwaukee, there is quite a bit of service, and the high schools that you have here all have at least one line. Some of them have several lines running within a half mile, which is about a 10-minute walk for youth. Youth Pass is great, supports our regional climate goals, supports the goals of where we want to get with mode share and transit ridership. And as part of a coalition that's called the Getting There Together Coalition that I work in, we're advocating for a regional universal youth pass. And what that means is a pass that's available to all youth aged 18 and under. It's not means tested, so it's available to all youth regardless of their financial or social or even their school status. So youth that are out of school, homeschooled, maybe homeless. We've got a unfortunately large homeless youth population in the region, would still be eligible. And then it's available year-round. So it's not just during school year, but we recognize that there's students who are actually maybe riding transit even more in the summer and are really in need of this kind of a travel option. So the main thing that I wanted to say is that I'm really appreciative of the support that you all have had in the past around youth and their travel needs, and this really does just continue to build on the work that you've already done, the good work you've done, and provide more options to youth in the region. One thing that we wanted to bring to your attention is that we really want to be able to look at this program from a sort of a user pays perspective. We want to be able to say that this is a pass that is available to everyone without means testing, and that we will look at actual usage to be able to determine the cost. And we've done some modeling, which I can share with you, or you may already have, that shows that even if we were to double current ridership, which is pretty generous and not likely to be what happens in the first year, it's still well within the range of what Metro is looking at for the budget that they've got for this regional measure. And so we're just really wanting to put that forward because there have been alternative proposals put forward that say, this is the cost of a pass, per month, and this is the number of students in the region, and you multiply that out, and the cost is exorbitant and not something that our region can actually afford, but it's also not a realistic cost. So we're just really wanting to put support behind a more reasonable and manageable cost estimate. Mm-hmm. That's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Well, I would be interested in seeing that, so it'd be great if you could send that to all of us. Yeah.
Do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I think there was a survey just recently online about whether or not people supported that. I remember responding to it. I can't remember whether it was just email or...
Metro has a survey out right now just for folks to provide input on all of the programs that they're looking at, including Youth Pass, but also the other ones that they're looking at as well.
But this was just on the Youth Pass, which I found to be very interesting. So, nobody else has seen that survey.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen the one that...
I've seen the Metro one.
Yeah, I haven't seen... I either haven't noticed or haven't seen the big one. Oh, yeah, I did the big one. But this was just, which, like I said, I thought was interesting. They explained it really well, too, so.
Okay. Yeah, if you can find it, it would be great to be able to look at that.
I'll look back and see if it was email or on LinkedIn or, it wouldn't be like LinkedIn, but maybe it was on Twitter even, I don't know. But.
So many places.
I know.
Too many.
Yeah.
So my thought on this is that beyond the obvious right now today good that it does, it perhaps sets kids in sort of the frame of mind of utilizing mass transit and causes it to become a habit for them so that as they are no longer 18-year-olds and they're off in the job market, it's still something that they consider the norm and sort of top of mind as opposed to thinking of the car as the normal way to get around. So to me, it's a really highly impactful concept for climate and equity, frankly, for that matter, purposes. So I would love to see Milwaukee being one of the sponsors is not the right word, is it? Sponsors? What we're talking about?
So we have a letter that we've drafted that sort of outlines the things that we're looking at for this particular program, and we're just asking for endorsements of that letter. That can be individuals, it can be the city council, the city, but we would love to have Milwaukee's support on that. We're gathering support from school districts and elected officials and community organizations all across the region.
Is that resolution in our packet? It's not here where the resolutions usually are.
The resolution was in the packet, but this letter she's referencing is not in the packet.
No.
The resolution.
There's the resolution.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, please.
Well, as someone who went to high school in Southwest Washington and had a parent who wasn't all that keen on driving me to Portland on the weekend when I wanted to go do something interesting, I know that Clackamas County has many cities with similar profiles to Battleground, Washington, where I went to high school, and that you can feel pretty isolated and alone in those parts of the country out there. So I think there's a lot of different benefits to this that aren't necessarily just climate, although that one's the most important one to me as well. But just in terms of supporting kids who need safe spaces and expanding their horizons, I think it can be a really valuable opportunity. And who need jobs and can't necessarily find them in their local communities. And this is a way to make it affordable for them to figure out how to work.
It's on page RS56 in the packet. Thanks.
I think, we do enjoy pretty good access to transit here in this region and right here in Milwaukee. And I think, if you make that more accessible, it becomes more of a choice even for kids who could afford, to drive or whose parents, could afford to buy them a car. But I do think having that as an option gives kids, the choice. And I think often, kids who have better access to a safe mode of transportation like transit, they do put off driving. And driving when you're 16 to 25, when your brain is still developing, is not necessarily the best idea. So anything we can do to encourage folks to make better choices, I'm all for.
Yeah, Forrest chose not to get his driver's license until he was moving away for college, and he thought maybe he might need it in Alabama. So, he just used transit.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So, should I read the resolution? Do we want to take a vote? How do we want to proceed? Who's interested in?
Sure, you should read it.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah, read it first.
Okay, I'll read it first, and then we'll do the motion. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, in support of a regional universal youth pass for all youth ages 18 and under in the Metro Regional Transportation Investment Measure. Whereas Youth Pass is a program that provides Portland Public School students free access to TriMet transit services in lieu of a traditional school bus system, and whereas each day more than 200,000 youth in the region need to get to school, visit family and friends, attend events and meetings, receive medical care, get to jobs, visit libraries, participate in extracurricular activities and sports, and more. And whereas over 60% of all students have indicated that access to a free youth pass would increase their ability to attend school activities, leadership opportunities, medical appointments, and employment opportunities. And whereas 85% of the Portland metro area high schools have one or more transit lines running directly outside the school campus or have transit lines within a half-mile or 10-minute walk of campus, including those in Milwaukee. And whereas Youth Pass is a critical program that builds the next generation of transit riders while reducing congestion and carbon pollution across the region. And whereas, as a region, we are not meeting our regional goals on transit ridership and climate emissions reductions. and whereas getting more people on transit is one of the easiest ways to reduce our carbon emissions from transportation. And whereas the Regional Universal Youth Pass program will help address the trend of declining transit ridership and build future transit riders. And whereas the Regional Universal Youth Pass program provides the most benefit when it is made available year-round to all youth aged 18 and under in the metro region, regardless of a student's financial, social, or school status. And whereas the Regional Universal Youth Pass program builds on Portland's existing Youth Pass program and funding model and incorporates existing TriMet commitments related to student rider pass funding programs. And whereas the cost of the Regional Universal Youth Pass program is based on ridership levels that reflect lost fare revenue as determined by actual card use, verified by TriMet's HOP card usage in a manner like the annual pass program for employers. And whereas the cost of the Regional Universal Youth Pass program is estimated at approximately $3 million per year, which represents double the existing program usage, and usage by private school students, youth out of school, and unhoused youth. And whereas Metro's Transportation Measure Task Force and Metro Council have approved approximately $5 million for youth fare affordability in the region, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, that the Metro regional government is asked to include a Regional Universal Youth Pass program for all youth age 18 and under in the Metro Regional Transportation Investment Measure.
You ready for a motion then?
Sure, unless there's
I move to approve the resolution in support of a Regional Universal Youth Pass for all youth ages 18 and under in Metro's Regional Transportation Investment Measure.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution in support of the Regional Universal Youth Pass for all youth ages 18 and under in Metro's Regional Transportation Investment Measure. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Excellent. Welcome. All right. Back to the regularly scheduled meeting. All right. The 2019 Volunteer of the Year Awards selection, a discussion. This will be led by our Community Engagement Coordinator, Jason Wachs.
Good evening, everyone. We've been talking a lot about volunteers tonight, so this seems appropriate. As I do every year, I come forward to you guys and talk to you about the Volunteer of the Year. A little background, just to remind everybody kind of where this came from. We've been doing the Volunteer of the Year since 2012. Our past winners are listed up there. The last four are pictured on the right. And that includes Ed Zumwalt, Dayon Shepard, Alicia Hamilton, David Aschenbrenner, Joel Bergman, Lisa Gunyon-Rinker, and Greg Heemer. So that has been our past winners. The nomination process for this year began on December 11th. That's when we released the nomination form online. It ended on February 14th. The result was 17 nominations, 9 individuals and 1 couple were nominated, and 3 of the individuals were nominated more than once. So there's all the nominations. I know you've all received the nomination forms on a separate cover prior to this meeting. I chose that photo. I thought it was appropriate from the library opening day where it said lucky day. So someone on this list is going to have a lucky day coming up. So Pixie Adams, Lisa Lashbrook, and Stefan Lashbrook. Just so you know, we don't have any rules that say 2 people can't win the award. Stefan Lashbrook, Dave McAdams, Connie Ross, Sarah Smith, Mark Sten, Kim Travis, and Ed Zumwalt. As you know, Ed Zumwalt was also the first person to win this award. We also do not have any rules, at least we haven't created any rules that say that someone can't win twice. So he is included in the list. The criteria, just real quickly, just to remind everyone, it's basically longevity of service to the community, some contribution of volunteer service in 2019, service within the city limits of Milwaukee, and some contribution to a city-related activity is preferred. It's not required, and that's basically some volunteer work with our boards, commissions, committees, ad hoc committees, NDAs, that sort of thing. So. And finally, how we're going to thank and honor the winner. Similar to years past, the volunteer dinner, they will be recognized and provided with an award on March 31st at the Milwaukee Center. That dinner thanks all of our board and commission members and NDA leaders and ad hoc committees that we have. And we'll do a press release to local media. They'll be featured on the April pilot, hopefully the April pilot, since the articles are due next week. Social media posts to thank them, and then their name will be added to the plaque that's in the lobby of City Hall, which we redid last year, actually, to make it a little bit easier. Now we just carve a piece of wood rather than creating metal plates. As you can see, there's some pictures on the right of some of our award ceremonies in the past. And so, as we've done in the last few years, I provided Scott with ballots to just provide to you to kind of see where we lie at this point. You get to vote. You get to use a ballot today on Super Tuesday, so, you know.
Is this going to be ranked choice voting?
Possibly. So, yeah.
It actually would be a really perfect kind of thing for ranked choice.
I know, I was kidding, but not kidding.
We should do it next year.
Yeah.
And Scott has volunteered to tally the votes once they're complete and see where we are.
You have a pen? Oh, wait, okay. Thank you.
One precinct recording.
Are you whistling the Jeopardy music?
We have other ballots if there is a tie.
Yes, he has a stack of other ballots here in case we have to. I think we did have to have a second round last year, as I recall.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Drum roll.
Be quick about it, this hurts.
Couldn't take too long to figure this out, right?
Wow, there's more.
And now you sound like dripping water.
I think you've got some gutter issues at home. Fine, I'll stop.
I liked it when it was fast.
Yeah.
Yes, keep it up. Drum roll. Now drum roll.
You said we didn't do a third round last year? We haven't been to a third round before?
We haven't been to, I don't believe so.
We're going to a second round.
We're going to a second round. Okay.
We have, the initial results are 1 vote for Stefan Lashbrook, 2 votes for Lisa Lashbrook, and 2 votes for Lisa and Stefan Lashbrook.
I think that tells us.
I think we know what our winner is.
I know what the answer is.
Let's try it again.
One more time.
Table is, are we all good with the two of them? That's really the only question on the table.
We have enough for 3 ballot rounds if we need.
This has never happened, definitely before.
Only Lisa or Lisa and Stefan.
Okay.
I'm going to need that pen again.
There.
I got it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh.
Scott we talked about several scenarios, but this was not one of them.
We try to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, thank you.
In the second round of voting, we have 1 vote for Lisa Lashbrook and 4 votes for Lisa and Stefan Lashbrook.
There you go.
So I believe
Have it.
Volunteers of the Year, Lisa and Stefan.
I guess, there we go. Yeah.
This is our first time we've had 2 winners. I know them quite well, so that,
Winnership.
And the great thing is I have a lot of photos of them, so that won't be a problem.
Kind of our poster children.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Well, that's all I had tonight. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Painless.
We'll see you at the dinner on March 31st.
All righty.
Thanks.
And I just want to issue the usual caveat of, we had lots of really great
Yes.
people who were nominated, and
Yes.
you can always nominate people again next year, and I always love reading these and learning about the people who do so much for our community. We would not be here without you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what our volunteers do.
Seriously, busy people.
All right. The next item is our City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee appointments, a resolution. This will be presented by our Development Project Manager, Allison Wicks, and our City Recorder, Scott Stoffer.
Good evening. So, as you said, I'm Allison Wicks, the Development Project Manager, here with Scott to talk about, to bring a resolution for City Council consideration to make appointments to the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee. As a reminder, the role of the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee will be to learn about the operational costs and limitations of our City Hall building, to learn about historic preservation and development market conditions in downtown Milwaukee. They'll also help us develop project goals for releasing of requests for proposals in the future for this building, and participate and help us shape the larger community engagement effort. Our process for creating the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee started with an application. So the applications were open until February 10th. We received 25 applications. 6 different committees and boards nominated members. So this is the Planning Commission, Design and Landmarks Committee, Arts Committee, Milwaukee Historical Society, North Clackamas School District Board, and the Parks and Recreation Board. And then for the at-large positions, city councilors scored applications. We hosted 11 interviews with myself, Scott, Wilda, and Angel. And we selected the 6 additional at-large members to the committee that represent our neighborhoods and downtown business interests. The tree board declined nominating a member and there were no applicants from Hector, Campbell, or Llewellyn neighborhoods. So that leaves us with 12 members and 1 alternate that are asked to serve a 1-year term, and we're also would like to have a city council liaison added to this list tonight as well.
I don't want to do it.
To do this. I've worked with historic buildings in the past and in part of my past, and have a strong interest in it. So.
Cool. Anybody want to arm wrestle?
I was going to nominate Wilda.
I really wanted to clear the way for it to be Wilda.
Okay, there we go.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Great, thank you. That's it. That's all I have, so the resolution.
I don't have mine with me. Do you have a cord?
I do have my cord. Hang on.
You do? Okay.
I move to approve the resolution making appointments to the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution making appointments to the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
I am really glad that it's you, not you. I think you're the right person.
Well, I appreciate that I have the opportunity to do this.
Thanks. Good job. And good job, people who did the all-day
interviews
process.
were really difficult. I mean, there were so many really highly qualified people and people with so much interest and so much passion and ideas and everything. So I would certainly hope that we'll find ways to incorporate them into other, meetings and other discussions and everything, as we usually do with volunteers. So thanks for all your work on that.
This recruitment, both these recruitments that we had, City Hall and the comprehensive plan, has brought out, I think, a new group of folks who haven't applied before. And so it was really, it was a good problem for the interview panels to have, because we had so much good folks to choose from. But we really encourage everyone who applied, either way, to stay involved and volunteer elsewhere.
We have a number of openings on our boards and commissions.
I agonized over the review process with these. Really, thank you to everyone who applied. There were some terrific applications.
Yeah. Same thing with this next one.
Yeah.
So this is the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee Appointments Resolution, and this will be presented by our Associate Planner, Berkelius.
Good evening, everyone. The Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee is a follow-up to the Comprehensive Plan process that we're undergoing right now. An advisory committee is proposed to be formed that will review and provide input on the code and map amendments that will be moving forward to implement the policies of the comprehensive plan. Our mix of folks, we had some parameters that were discussed with council, including members of the current CPAC, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, so that we would have some institutional knowledge moving forward into that implementation committee. One city councilor, and we'll be asking for a volunteer from you folks, a planning commissioner, and then a collection of new community members. So we went through a similar recruitment process that the City Hall Blue Ribbon Committee went through. We had a similar deadline of February 10th. We also had 25 applications for that process as well. We had 4 CPAC members express interest in moving forward and continuing to work on this project. So we have Matthew Bebo, Celestina DeMauro, Daniel Eisenbeis, and Stefan Lashbrook. Must be why he's winning his awards. So we had the 4 CPAC members, and we would have a city councilor, a planning commissioner, and then we narrowed down the applicant pool, and we conducted 12 interviews on February 22nd. An agonizing half day trying to go through that. It was an incredible list of folks. And at the end of the day, we do have a list of folks that we are proposing to move forward. It's part of the resolution. So in addition to the CPAC members, Joel Bergman, Jennifer Dillon, Ada Gonzalez, Sharon Johnson, Micah Mescal, Renee Moog, Dominique Rossi, Eugene Zahari, and Nicole Deb would round out the collection. The Planning Commission at their January 14th meeting selected Joseph Edge to be their CPAC member, and Lauren Lusfelt is the alternate for the Planning Commission. So we would just need City Council to have a member selected, and that will round out the pool. We'll have a total of 15 members for the CPAC. It's good to have an odd number, just in case it comes down to a vote of some kind. Again, the CPAC will be responsible for reviewing the code concepts with staff and providing input on the proposed amendments to the code. So the final list is in the attached resolution, and I anxiously await your selection for this committee, since I'm managing it.
So you have the bandwidth to...
I would be very interested in continuing, but if someone else is chomping at the bit, I would also be willing to pass the torch, whatever. I've enjoyed the work with the CPAC, and
well, I think it's important, too, that continuity continue. So I would support Lisa to serve on that.
Yeah. Yep.
And if we need an alternate, I would consider being the alternate, even though.
Okay.
But really poor choice for an alternate right now. But
I would also offer to serve as an alternate. I think that it is really interesting work, and I think, but I'm also very happy to see Lisa continue doing it.
Cool.
Great. Thanks very much.
There you go.
So I move to approve the resolution appointing members to the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution appointing members to the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Excellent. Yeah, another extraordinary group of people. It was really hard to whittle it down. I think we were only able to talk ourselves into it by saying, well, that person would make an outstanding planning commissioner.
Yeah, lots of secondary recommendations coming out of both of those committees.
It was super hard.
Follow up by various people. Yeah.
Okay, our next item is the Municipal Court Amnesty Program, a discussion. This will be led by our Finance Director, Bonnie Dennis, and our Courts Operation Officer, Carla Benz.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight we're going to go over the Court Amnesty Program. The Court Amnesty Program is essentially a process so that we can have individuals that are currently outstanding in our collections be able to pay a portion of their fine for a relief of the total outstanding debt that they have with the collections and as well with the city. So basically it provides a relief for individuals that have an outstanding fine held at collections, and it's related to both traffic and parking violations. These are fines that have been adjudicated by the judge. It takes approximately 90 days for a ticket to go into it takes approximately 90 days for non-payment fine to get sent over to collections. So it actually, after 30 days, if an individual has not paid on their ticket, their traffic ticket, that individual's driver's license actually gets suspended, and then after 90 days it gets sent over to collections if they still have not paid.
Do they get a letter at that 30 days, or they get any kind of communication from?
Yeah, they sure do.
What normally happens is if the person fails to appear for court, we send them out a fail to appear letter, and in that letter it tells them if they do not comply with the court or come by and do a payment plan, that this is what can happen. And then that's kind of how it usually runs.
So currently we have about 4,000 individuals that are in collections just for the traffic and parking fines. Those date back to 2006. With that, that's an amount of about $3.2 million that we have outstanding. We actually have a much larger receivable at collections, which includes code violations and other violations, and that's about $5 million. But just for parking and traffic, it's $3.2 million, which is about the majority.
Just out of, I'm trying to remember if it broke down, like the original fine, how much of that is original fine and how much of that is interest and the accruing charges that add on? Do you have some?
Yeah, so.
Well, the amounts that Bonnie has given you, that's just our portion.
Yeah.
When it goes to collections, they tack on 25%, and it starts accruing interest. So we don't see that portion on our books per se. Oh. We just see what we have sent over to them, which is the original amount.
So that's literally the original ticket amount, that $3.2
million, yes. Yeah. So there's an additional amount that the collections agency, with the interest, will tack on to the fine. Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So with the amnesty program, it provides an opportunity for the individuals to clear their debt and reinstate their license if they pay 50% of their total outstanding bill. That's including the traffic fine, the original fine, as well as the interest. If they pay the 50% that's total due, the other 50% is waived. There is a lot of benefits to this program. That it helps individuals reduce their debt. It helps them, gives them an ability to actually get their license reinstated much sooner rather than later. There's the additional benefit to the city by reducing our outstanding receivable. And there's also just the workload in general. Every ticket that we touch is additional time for the court staff. So there is some elements to the program that have some restrictions. So currently, right now, we have it set where all the outstanding fines have to be 3 years or older. And that's one of the questions that we are bringing forward to counselors tonight about length of time. The reason why it's set for 3 years and older is because, according to the collection agencies, most individuals that are currently in debt usually turn around after the 2-year mark. So after 2 years, they're usually able to get their feet back on the ground and have the more means to pay off debt. So if you're currently have an outstanding debt, basically, after 2 years, historically, people are able to turn their lives around for the better.
So just playing devil's advocate, does the collections agency have an incentive to want us to start further out because their late fee that they get to charge is less? I mean, is more the further out? Like if somebody's, I guess, why wouldn't we start a year out, or why wouldn't we start 2 years out?
Yeah.
I mean, is that, they just don't have an incentive because their fee they collect won't be much if it's...
Yeah, it's actually, we asked the same question, and they had came back and said that actually they don't see much of a difference between 2 years and 3 years. A year worse, they just went to collections. So if they haven't really paid the city at that point, after 90 days, more than likely they're not going to be able to afford to pay even 50% at that point after a year. So we can certainly do 2 years, but 3 years is also the norm when we looked at other cities that are doing the same exact program.
Okay.
Currently, we have it set for fines at traffic and parking tickets only, no other violations, and that's mainly because traffic and parking are the biggest items that we have outstanding. These are also only cases that are in non-judgment status with the collection agency, and non-judgment means that the collection agency is not actually going out, they're not taking that person to court themselves for some other reason. And then also partial payments and payment plans on the 50% due is also not eligible for the Amnesty program.
So they have to be able to pay the full 50?
Yeah, yes.
Is there kind of an average of what those fines are right now? I mean, I know you used $100 or $1,000 as an example here, but is that kind of in the higher end, or are most of them, $500 and up? Or, I mean, what kind of things are we talking about, basically? Do you have some kind of rough idea?
Tickets go anywhere from when we send them down to them. I mean, if you get just a regular speeding ticket, it's usually $165. And then once we do a suspension on them, it's another $15 put on top of that. And then we send to collections, we put on a collection fee. So we may send some of these tickets down to the collection agent, or if they fail to appear, there's a fail to appear fee. So some of these tickets may go down $300-400.
Okay.
And then the 25% that the collection agency tax on this way, with them putting on the 25%, we get to keep, we get all of, we don't have to reduce our fines. They will send us 100%, and then they keep the 25%. That's kind of their fee. And then we get part of the interest also that they collect. Part of that comes back to the city. Also.
So there's a 25% fee one time and interest.
Yes.
And what's the interest rate?
It's 9%. Simple interest.
And how much of that does the city?
We get 50%.
50% of the 9%.
And the cities that have done this, have they been pretty successful? People are...
I mean, I've spoke with some of the city clerks, some of the court clerks at some of the different cities, and they said yes, that they have cleared some of the older cases off their books and got rid of some of the older cases and recouped some of the fees, and got, the whole purpose is to get people back on the road and get them so they're not so much in debt and clear old cases off.
When our letters go out, what languages do they go out in?
They go out in English.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking of a number of residents that would have a very hard time bringing themselves to interact with the courts in any way, shape, or form, and whether or not they fully understand what is being asked of them and whether or not they will be able to take this opportunity to clear their records. I'm wondering if we could do something about that.
Are you talking about just the letters that we send out through our normal processing of the court?
Yeah. Hey, you need to show up in court. Sure. What language does that go out in? Hey, you've got a fine because you haven't. You get where I'm going.
But still, we have to determine which language they speak also. That's kind of the backlog, though, too. Sometimes you don't want to.
Well, what I'm asking is, could we have a boilerplate version of the letter that goes out in the, I would assume that it's Spanish and
Russian
is the other one. The two that we would be most concerned with, and just have all of our letters go out in multiple languages. I know that probably means more printing costs and more paper, so I'm not saying it lightly, but I think it may be important enough to do that.
Yeah, the school district, does, pretty, they include most of all the languages that are spoken in the school district. And I think, even if it's not the full content, references to where to find information about that in your language can be very helpful.
Right.
I was also thinking about, in terms of advertising this program, if we were to adopt it, I think, a little bit more targeted outreach would be appropriate. I think, the standard sort of what we included here with, the pilots and the newspapers, I think might only reach a certain population who wouldn't necessarily benefit from a program like this. So I think looking beyond those sort of standard methods would be really.
Well, we would send letters to all of them, right?
Yeah, we were looking
at their last known address. Do we?
Well, yeah. There's some.
A lot of them aren't going to get there.
Right.
I think we co-market with Library Amnesty, Library and Fine.
Yeah, we were going to work through the collection agency to send out the city would send out the mailer.
And we talked about.
And so that's using more accurate header, credit header information to try to actually track down a more recent address.
They may have a different address on file than we do, because we send it down at a certain address, and they may have had contact with them and with an updated address, which would, and we discussed possibly postcards and things like that, getting that out to the people that are eligible.
There's no requirement that the city actually do the license suspension on a parking ticket. That's just something we choose to do.
We don't do parking tickets.
Okay, so only on moving violations?
I guess to me it seems worth a shot, I do think, in addition to the mailing, it would be good to do our regular outlets to.
Oh, sure.
Because people might go, oh yeah, my kid who's, now off wherever, I know he's got a backlog of tickets or whatever, you may get them indirectly through family members or other ways to know, hey, here's your chance to.
Clear your name.
Clear it up.
Do we have a process if somebody is low income and they get a $160 ticket and they didn't understand the thing they got in the mail, so they didn't show up for court, and now they've got a whatever. Do we have a process by which they can make some kind of payment plan before this goes to collections, before there's licenses suspended, all that?
We just talked about that.
Normally what it is the officer stops them, the officer hands them a ticket, and on the bottom of the ticket is their court date and time. If they come into the court at the court date and time, or they come into the office and they can't communicate, we will get them an interpreter to come in and communicate with the judge, or we do have a language line downstairs that we also can communicate with them if they come to the counter. And then from there, if they come into court and the judge finds them, they plead guilty and the judge finds them, we do offer them a payment plan. So that's a total, and we will set it for any amount that they happen to need that will fit in with their schedule. Judge Graves always says to them, make it your payment plan. When you go downstairs, make it that you will be able to do it. Not, I always tell people, our goal is not to, have a whole file cabinet full of people that don't pay. Our goal is to, make sure that you comply. So it doesn't end up getting to a suspension, and then it goes to collections, and there's another whole can of worms.
So the folks that, or for whatever reason, don't get to court,
some of them don't come to court, yes.
Then that's when a letter goes out to them, which could be in different languages, for sure. Does it also tell them that at that point they could do a payment program?
Yes. What happened? Our fail to appear letters state that you missed your court date. We're giving you this till this date, which is a 30-day window to come in and either pay or pay the fine, or you can come in and you can set a payment plan. And then Judge Graves has a new option that we just started, where if it's the court date before and they missed it, and she will put them back on the docket so they can come and explain to her why they didn't come. And sometimes she will get rid of the fail to appear fee and things like that on it, and then they can go downstairs and they can either pay or they can set a payment plan. So we're trying to work with people. Our goal isn't to just slap them with a bunch of fines and fees, but is to try to be able to help them out as much as possible.
I don't think it's been said, but I think it's important to just consider, too, that we're not necessarily talking about Milwaukee City residents. Right. A lot of these tickets, probably most of them, are issued to people who don't live here, may not even live in the state of Oregon. Right. I expect that the same kind of communication probably goes out to them, but I think it's an interesting way to see, what works. I know collections work in a variety of other circumstances, and so, if somebody has got the opportunity to pay 50% of something and have it totally taken care of, it seems like some people will find that to be a real benefit. And the more we can clean up our records and get cash in the door.
Yeah, great. So generally, is everybody in support of the Amnesty program?
I would move it down to 2 years, though, I think.
Instead of just a year trial?
3. No.
Oh, that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, the outstanding fines must have been in collections for 3 years or more. I would move it down to 2 years.
Started at 2 years?
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So the next question was running as a pilot program from May 1st to June 30th. So that's just 2 months, and it just ends at the end of the fiscal year. And then we would come back after June 30th, give you an update of how the program went. And then if it was successful, then we would hopefully do it again in the beginning of the next year, so probably February timeframe. Because one of the historical things that we have learned through this process is that a lot of people do pay and use this program once they've had their tax refunds. So we would come back again and try to match that time frame if it was successful.
We're also trying to create a reason why somebody suddenly is paying. So you don't want it to be ongoing, or they can just come back in the next month. We want this to be a set amount of time. And we like this idea of coming back on an annual basis to say, is this a year? Just so there's a little bit of doubt that there will be another year. Our goal is to get to compliance.
I'm sorry, I actually want to go back to the mayor's suggestion. I'm not sure that that's beneficial to move it up to 2. Understanding the way this program works and hearing what your observations were from the collections agency, it sounds like people need 2 years at least to get their finances sorted out. So if we offer this opportunity right at that 2-year mark versus at the 3-year mark when they've had a little more time to perhaps get their finances sorted out, I wonder if that's...
Well, they can, so anybody that when this letter goes out, people who are 2 years out, people who are 3 years out, people who are 27 years out are all eligible.
Yes, for this short window of time that we are trying to...
See, I'm about to push back on the short window of time, so.
Well, and I think the other point, and I mean, in terms of moving it up, I mean, that, you know, if you're not ready, if you can't take advantage of the program, you can't take advantage of the program. If you can, there's a chance for you to get your license back, which means you get back to work a year earlier than you
Get your
would.
license back and avoid a year's worth of...
Interest accruing. Yeah, I don't see a downside to the 2 years. Yes, there will be people who can't take it, but there will be people who can and who will save themselves a year's worth of interest.
Well, the incentive of getting their license back, I would think, would prompt a lot of people.
And so here's my pushback on the short window. You get this letter, and you're somebody who's making minimum wage or whatever, and you go, wow, this would be great. It's going to take me 4 months to save up $1,000 because my whole thing is $2,000 or whatever. They may not be able to just pull $500 out of their back pocket.
That's totally fair. I think that that's part of why Bonnie is also recommending that you do this near tax season, when people are more likely to have an influx of cash. We actually had originally intended to make that happen this year. We just ran out of time. We've had a few other projects going on. So we missed the window for this one. But we didn't want to miss talking to you because we hadn't. So we came to you now just knowing we had capacity to deal with it right now. You know, my request is that we do use this as a way to incentivize people to pay instead of something that's routinely there. However you want to structure that, I support, but that is the goal, is we want this to become something that somebody goes, yeah, I want to take advantage of this. I want to figure out how to do it so that I can get away from this debt instead of, I'll deal with it next week.
So again, I think they've got plenty of incentive. They don't have a driver's license. That's a lot of incentive.
Let me introduce you to my family member who had so many parking tickets and other moving infractions in the city of Portland that there was a tow on site order for her car. Unfortunately, or fortunately.
You were driving it when she...
No. Black Honda Civic, and how many bazillion black Honda Civics are there in the city of Portland? So this relative got away with it for years, and it was not because she could not pay. And I'm not saying that is ordinary, but it is also out there.
This does not mean people are not driving.
Yeah.
I think is part of that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
I have many family members who have driven on suspended licenses. It does not prevent you from driving. It makes you more frightened when you drive, and it probably makes you a worse driver in some ways because you are anxious, but it does not prevent you from driving.
Yeah.
It probably makes you very scrupulous about not speeding and things like that. That would bring you to the attention.
You would be surprised. I still drive around without.
I would be so nervous about breaking the law that
I think I would be so safe, but there are people that drive around talking on their phone and not wearing seatbelts and not registering their cars that have suspended licenses.
Wow.
Yeah. So we see them in court every week. Yes.
Wow.
Do you have a longer time frame that you want to suggest?
For the test program, the pilot program?
For the pilot program. If we do a longer program, I just would like to suggest that we can maybe start as of July 1 to the starting of the new fiscal year. And that also would actually give time for the advertisement to go out. And then if folks say, oh, hey, I got this program coming up, it's not just next month, it's going to be in a couple months.
Okay, so if there's going to be notification substantially before the window, that's a different story.
Right.
We could do that.
So like 2 months notification?
Sure.
Okay.
And then a 2-month window?
Sure.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
That works for me.
So do 1 2-month window now and 1 2-month window next, whatever, February?
Yeah, February, March, April,
March,
May.
April.
March, April.
Well, yeah, I think, or April,
Maybe.
May, June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So we'll start the program as of July 1. We'll start doing the advertising about now. Okay. And then the last question I had was traffic and parking violations. Are you okay with just traffic and parking violations?
As opposed to citations for whatever.
Yes, code
enforcement.
We have marijuana, school attendance. We do have some of
What are the marijuana ones?
for people that were, before it went into law, that you could actually smoke marijuana. They were cited into this court.
Oh, I'm interested in adding that then to it.
Or,
Yeah, if it's no longer illegal, I
Or there was
definitely
also,
wanna add.
we get cited kids that are between the ages of, well, they're not kids, people from the ages of 18 to 21, that it's not illegal for them to smoke marijuana.
Yeah, that's
And so those come into our court. We don't get very many, but there's a few out there that we do get. And then there's code enforcement cases and tobacco, juveniles and tobacco. We have those.
I'm all for parking and traffic. Yeah.
I would agree with Angel that the people who got busted for a law that's no longer a law, I think they're letting people out of jail for those things now. So I think it's, by the same token, at least giving them an opportunity to have it 50% off, at the very least.
And just to make sure we're clear, going back to the other statement, so this isn't for individuals who were using underage. So if they would still be, if when they were documented as using marijuana and they were 18 to 21, or they were under 21 and the age was 21, their stand. But this is for anyone else who was over the age of 21 at the time they were using.
Yeah, they were getting they were in a different system entirely, right? I mean, you're in a, that's a different ticket in addition to the mayor, right? I mean, that's an underage thing. I mean, I think that would be pretty easy to parse out, right?
If it was under the age of 18, we didn't even get them here. They went to the juvenile department.
Right.
Under 18, but
We just got
between
18 and
21.
above.
Even then, isn't there it's still underage?
How about we come back to you with more information
I
on
would
that?
like
We're
that.
going to have to bring you a resolution on this anyway, so we can bring that at the next meeting in the staff report. If you want to pull it off of consent because you still have questions, we can, but otherwise we'll just include answers to this in the report.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Council input on legislative and regional issues. There's nothing happening.
Why are you even here, Kelly? I offered to let her go home, and she said, just in case.
Is there they're not coming back?
Not so far. They have, 2 more days? How many? 7th? Is it the 7th or the 8th?
Saturday's the last day.
Saturday is signing day or whatever.
Any day, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing. So March 8th at 11:59, they constitutionally have to adjourn. So there's the subpoena that says that requesting that missing members attend by the 5th, but I have no insight into if that will result in anyone coming on the 5th. So I don't have anything. There's been 3 bills that have passed. The one bill that passed that was on y'all's list to track was the Happy Valley legislation. So
That's ironic, isn't it? That's the one thing that gets through.
so yeah, I don't really have anything
Ben
to share.
mentioned that at the Chamber's public policy. I mean, there were 3 bills that were passed.
Yeah.
They were one of them. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a plan at the legislature? Is there, if they come back, we'll do, I mean, is there any chance?
Sure, there's a plan.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I guess just what might be live if they did come back on the 5th. I mean, I guess.
I could probably give you a
Horse trading, then.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a set of measures that have cleared, that received largely unanimous support. That's essentially what I think they're doing right now, is reading bills that could be moving. So a lot of the discussion around, there was some legislation related to foster care support, disaster aid. I think some of that might be moving administratively, but they've been kind of talking about a certain set of bills in the morning, so that would maybe give you an indication of what might be on the hot list to move. But and I don't have any direct insight into any communications, but all the press stories are consistently saying from the Democrats that they're not interested in negotiating the climate legislation to bring people back. So it seems like a stalemate. So most of the conversation has been about what, since they have some time now to talk about other things, what type of things they could put in place to forestall future walkouts. So that seems to be where it sits for now.
There's an election in November.
Yep.
So that's something we all could do.
There's a measure circulating to create higher penalties for not showing up for your job as well, that people can seek out and sign if they feel that way.
The change to quorum thing, that would have to go to the ballot as a constitutional amendment.
So the story, again, it's just press stories, but the account that I read was looking like changing the quorum might be a little bit of a high hurdle, so they were looking at just redefining what it meant, instead of it just being a total number of days of business in session rather than like a time limited. So you would have 30 days, 30 legislative days, but you would actually have to hold business on those legislative days. So it wouldn't just, the clock wouldn't just automatically run out if you weren't meeting. So they had
That would force the Republicans to basically move to Idaho.
Maybe. I don't know how to handle that part. But it would mean that you sort of just couldn't just run out the clock that way, that the session wouldn't just automatically end on a certain date. But so there's potentially a way to change the definition of what it means to be
in session
that they were looking at. So I don't know, but all I do know is that I didn't bring you a list of things to talk about. So, thank you, Kelly.
All righty, thanks.
Thank you.
I do believe that's it.
I would move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
8 p.m.